Hello. The more you try to control your life, the less control you have. The universe controls your life. No one else. Not even you. Mm. What we've done in our past lives has a lot to do with what we do in this life and why we're here. Uh, we're dealing with karma. We're dealing with past offenses and benefits and how they affected us. Uh, when we deal with um, things in the past and we come back to deal with them and we don't deal with them, we have to come back and deal with them again. So if you're running from something, you'll never get away from it. It'll follow you wherever you go. Uh, just don't worry. Don't worry. If you're sick, call a doctor. And if you don't worry, you'll have less reason to call a doctor. The more you worry, the more reasons you'll have. Like a hypochondriac, you know, worried about everything. I've got every disease under the sun, and they don't have anything. You know, their worry becomes their problem, not the disease. They're their worst enemy, not the disease. I'm not saying disease doesn't exist. I'm not saying there's no reason to go to the hospital. I just went to the hospital because I thought I had a stroke. I lost my eyesight for about a half hour. Not complete blackout, but blurry. I couldn't read. And I was reading and then I couldn't. And when it came back, I was like, wow, that was a big difference. So I went to the hospital and had myself checked out. I wasn't worried. I just didn't think staying home and doing nothing was a good idea. Uh, the universe will put certain things in our way, in our life, um, like breadcrumbs, and lead us through the path that it wants us to go on. And I think going to the hospital was part of that path. And losing my eyesight was the catalyst for sending me there. Um, Now I'm seeing a neurologist and probably going to do an MRI. And, you know, maybe they'll find something that has nothing in the world to do with a stroke. But they're putting me under a microscope with the MRI, and maybe they'll find a tumor. I'm not hoping they find a tumor in any way, but I don't think the MRI will be a waste of time. I hope it is, and that's the best case scenario, that it's a waste of time. And maybe that's the whole point, is to go through it and find out that I don't have a tumor. My uncle died of a brain tumor, so it runs in my family. So, I just, maybe if they do find something, they'll find it small enough so they can actually do something. But, in his case, he didn't find it until he crashed his car. And they couldn't find out why he crashed his car, and they did a MRI and they found the tumor. But it was too late for him. You know, there was no cure. And maybe the universe is trying to save me from that fate. Maybe, these things are, right now they're maybes because I haven't had the MRI. But eventually they'll be definites. Either definitely I have a tumor, or definitely I don't, or definitely I had a stroke, or definitely I didn't. Maybe those are the answers I'm gonna have to be dealing with. None of them are bad answers, as long as it's caught early. Um, you know, uh, there can be something done in most cases, and and that could be the whole. That's just why you have a colonoscopy, right? You have a colonoscopy because, and I just had one in April, uh, to find any polyps, any cancerous growth in your colon, and if you don't get a colonoscopy, the effects can be dire. Uh, then they get to a point where we can't operate, we can't do anything, they can't do a colonoscopy. It's too late for that. So that's the running census, the running theme. You want to catch it early, you know. And I have type 2 diabetes, so I have to worry about certain things. My eyesight is one of them. So if it wasn't a stroke that caused my eyesight to go, what was it? At least I'm posing the question. I'm not just sitting home saying I don't. It's nothing. A lot of people don't. They're afraid to go to the hospital. They're afraid to hear that diagnosis. But being in that fear, living in that fear, uh, they create more fear because they get to that point where they can't do anything. They say, the worst thing you can hear is when you go to the hospital or a doctor's office, and they say, well, if you would have come in 2 months ago, everything would have been fine. But now it's too late. And I never want to hear that. I might, I still could, but I'm trying to prevent it. And I'm not living in fear. I'm not living in worry. I'm not worried. Do I look worried? I'm not worried. I mean, if there is a tumor, then there is a tumor. There's nothing I can do about it. Maybe, maybe not. But I'm just using the technology of the day, which is an MRI and a CAT scan, and using it to my advantage. Uh, my grandfather died of a heart attack at 65. They didn't have stents back then. They didn't do open heart surgery on a, and if they did, a lot of people died on the table. Um, so, it's not surprising that he died at 65. But I already had 3 stents in my heart, and I had 2 heart attacks, uh, and I'm 57. I had the heart attacks when I was 54. Uh, so it's kind of young to have a heart attack, you know. And I don't know. I mean, like, it runs in my family, and you gotta really worry about what runs in your. I mean, girls have their breasts chopped off because their mother had breast cancer. I mean, it's a real problem. It's a real worry. But you shouldn't live in constant fear. I welcome death. I don't run from death. I don't fear death. I ride an e-bike. I wear a helmet. I don't purposely crash my bike. I don't. It doesn't go that fast, so it's not like I go too fast. But I wear a reflector vest on my back uh, to help. Uh, so I do what I can. You know, uh, people that drive tractor trailers die in car accidents. So it doesn't matter that I'm riding a bike and not a tractor trailer. One doesn't make me safer than the other. Um, it's just when it's your time, and there's really not much you can do about it. Uh, but you can wear a helmet, you can drive safe, you can not drive drunk uh, or high. Uh, you can take certain precautions. It's just like if you want to make money, if you want a good job, what you can what you consider good. I don't consider it a good job, but you would. Uh, you have to go to college. You have to get a degree. It doesn't come out of the sky. unless your father owns a company. And even if your father owns a company, he wants you to go to college. He wants you to get a degree. He wants you to know what you're talking about. So, you know, life, life is not something to worry about. The universe has you. Now, if you're in a bad way, if you're in a, your life is not good, um, don't take it as you're a bad person. You're learning a lesson. He's teaching. The universe is teaching you a lesson. Whatever that may be. If you're dealing drugs, the universe is teaching you a lesson that easy money isn't the way to go. Um, that's why it's easy money. They make it easy so they get plenty of people that are willing to do it. If it was hard, they wouldn't have so many people dealing. But drugs sell themselves. You don't have to work hard to sell drugs. Now, the problem with drugs selling themselves is that many people sell drugs. So in that sense, it's hard because you have a lot of competition, and people quit, people move. You don't always have a steady customer base. And people die. That too. So, and you go in and out of jail. You have to deal with the people that you buy your stuff from. They're not nice people either. And they don't just deal with you, they deal with many dealers. And they don't care about you, they care about the money. And so an easy road is not always an easy road. And if you're doing any of those things, if you're doing the drugs or you're selling the drugs, God's teaching you a lesson. That's all. The universe is teaching you a lesson. Now, if you learn the lesson, eventually you'll stop selling drugs and you'll stop doing drugs. You know, it's just like the mob. They used to deal drugs. They used to be in gambling. They used to be in prostitution. And I'm not saying they're not now. They are, but they're also in legal businesses like legal gambling. Their mob runs Las Vegas. They run Atlantic City. Uh, they're in the legal business as well as the illegal business. And there's more money in the legal business than there is illegal business because they don't play by the rules. You know, uh, they pay off the people that make them play by the rules. So they make the bribes and stuff so that they don't have to play by the rules. And that's why they're successful because they're beating the system. They're not playing by the system. They're rigging the system. You know, so it's very difficult to get into businesses where they run things like garbage men, garbage carting companies and demolition. The mob runs all that. Asbestos, the mob runs all of that. And if you want to start a business, in that industry, you got to be prepared to deal with the mob because they're going to come a knocking, you know. But the mob doesn't leave really any businesses untouched. They got their hands in everything, and they play with diamonds. They use blood diamonds. They use regular diamonds, black market diamonds, and that's how they launder their money. Now they do a lot of it with bitcoins and stuff like that. But neither here or there. Don't worry. Life is too short to waste it worrying. Uh, all those lessons I'm talking about. You might get hurt. You might get hurt. As a drug dealer, you can get hurt. As a drug addict, you can get hurt. As a mobster, you can get hurt. But it's just the universe's way of teaching you. A lot of people need to be hurt. People that go to jail for 20 years, those are people that The universe is like pounding like iron, banging iron on an anvil and trying to shape and mold. And they don't bend very well because if you ever try to bend iron, it's not it's not very easy. That's why they need 20 years in jail to bend the iron, and not everybody needs 20 years in jail to bend the iron. It just depends on you and your circumstance. Now, a lot of people when they get out after 20 years, they end up going back in because the bending of the iron didn't take. It didn't work. You know, they gave you another shot and you screwed it up. But and there's a lot of factors involved. Um, Iron is just a metaphor, but our soul is tough, is strong, and mostly the evil people that we would label evil people. Your drug dealers and your mobsters. They're really wimps. They're really wimps. 'Cause like the mobsters, they don't work alone. They work in groups. The drug dealers don't work alone. They work in groups. So they're really pussies, and they act big. They do horrible things so that you won't go against them and you won't attack them because they're pussies and they don't want to be attacked. You know, so and they don't attack you. They have their friend do it. You know, so uh, God, the universe and God respects brave people, and brave people stand up to the mob and stand up to the drug dealers by themselves, and they do get hurt, but they don't get hurt as bad, and they're protected, and they don't have anything to worry about. Um, it's just it's a balance between right and wrong, good and evil. Uh, but either way, even if you do everything right, you're still gonna suffer. And the more right you do it, the more you're gonna suffer. And that's just like a grooming part of becoming who you are or who you're gonna be. Uh, Again, it's banging the iron, you know, uh, molding you into what the universe knows you to be or why the universe made you to mold you in that direction, in that way. Like drug dealers and mobs. These guns are a pussy's way of fighting. Just pull the trigger. You know, use a knife. Use your fist. It takes a lot more guts. And fire a gun from 10, 15, 20 feet away doesn't take much balls. And you have to be brave. You have to be brave. If you want the universe and God to respect you, you have to be brave. And you have to do things that other people would say is crazy, literally crazy. And they got the universe, and God does not think it's crazy. They respect. Like Noah when he built the ark, everybody thought he was crazy. Everybody thought it was crazy until it started raining. And then all of a sudden, they're like, holy shit, this guy knew something we didn't know. And then they all wanted on board. They wanted a spot on the boat, and they didn't get it. Don't worry. Be happy. And take care of yourself.